What's good? It's your girl Bianca, and welcome back to yet another episode of Are You Alone? But what I'm actually asking you is, are you achieving life on natural euphoria? As always, I hope everyone has been doing well and just taking care of themselves. That is always the hope whenever I say that, but I do understand that life can get tricky, it can get in the way, and really when it comes to just your self-care, I really hope that you're tending to your needs physically, emotionally, and mentally. But with that being said, I appreciate you guys and your patience with my little leave of absence these past 2 weeks. I've had a lot of life updates that I'm excited to tell you guys about, but I'm gonna hold off on that for another time. But I am super duper excited for today's episode, and before we get into it, make sure to go stream all of the latest episodes of Are You Alone, which is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and many, many more. So today is a very special episode because it is actually my 6-month anniversary, and so it has officially been 6 months since I had aired my first episode of Are You Alone, where I had talked about, well, me not knowing what I wanted to do with my life. And for being real, that's the one thing that hasn't changed too much these past 6 months. But with the time span that it has been, I have learned a lot, not only about myself and what I'm capable of, but I've also learned a lot about other people because my podcast has reached out to, quite a bit of people, and I've had the pleasure to have just conversations with people over social media. I've also had a few phone calls that I've done talking to people and just having conversations about life. And so it's been an honor of mine just to get to know people, and really that was like my main purpose when it came to the podcast, was to kind of hear about people's experiences and eventually get the chance to then share and let other people in a little bit and maybe see what are the similarities as far as some of the things that we've gone through in our lives that make us so connected, but also makes us so unique in our own individual way. So it has been quite a bit of a roller coaster these past 6 months, but I would not trade it for the world. Not only is today my 6-month episode, but I also have my very first guest. Woo! So really the idea behind today's guest and kind of my episode, a few weeks back, if you have been keeping up, I did release an episode about the very first time that I was discriminated upon for being an Asian American, and I had also talked about how within that experience I also was able to keep my Filipina culture close to me because of my mom, who, for those of you who don't know, was born and raised in the Philippines. And so as I continue just to kind of bring more awareness around the topic and kind of just what is going on throughout our country, I decided to bring someone who is very, very special to me and someone that has really impacted my life a whole lot. So this is a COVID-friendly guest because I have been living with this person or quarantining with this person for quite some time, but it is my pleasure to introduce to you guys my roommate, who also happens to be my mom, Miss Maria Divina Palma de Guzman. Woo!
Hi, Ning.
Hi, Mom. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's been a long time, about 5 minutes since I
very
saw
true.
you.
That's
Are
right.
you excited to be here today?
I am. I'm excited. It's an honor to be over here, to be your first guest, and you get to interview your nanay.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me. So before we do move on into today's episode, kind of how I want to go about when it comes to having guests on my podcast is really just allowing them to share their experience, kind of let them really take over the episode and talk about whatever it is that they want to talk about. And so for today's episode, my mom will be talking about her life growing up in the Philippines and then her experience when she did come over to the United States. But before I give the mic over to my mom, I kind of just wanted to do a small little Tagalog lesson with everyone. So my mom will be referring to her family in the relation to me. So her nanay and her tatay, which is mom and dad in Tagalog, she will be referring to them as my lolo and lola, which means grandpa and grandma. And then she'll be referring to her kuyas and ate, which means brothers and sister, as my titos and my tita. So I just want to make sure everyone is on the same page. It doesn't hurt to learn someone else's culture, to learn a little bit of language as well. So if you need to, go pause this, go get a notebook, whatever it is, write down the terms. That way, when my mom, says them, you guys will know what she's saying. So without further ado, Mom, before I pass the mic to you, you can start us off by letting everyone know kind of exactly where you were born and where you grew up in the Philippines.
Sure. Can I say greeting first?
Oh, go ahead, Mom.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Kumusta kayong lahat? Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. So to begin with, I was born in the Philippines. I'm from the Luzon Island, province of Pampanga, Dao Mabalacat City. I grew up with both my parents. There are 5 siblings, 5 of us. I have 2 older kuyas, 1 ate, and 1 batang kapatid, which is younger brother. Growing up in the Philippines, I grew up poor. My dad worked so hard, though, to get us all to college. My mom stayed at home taking care of us, cooking food, doing all the dishes and everything. My father worked for the military base as a civilian. He was an auto mechanic. And right before he retired, the U.S. government granted him a special immigrant to come to the United States. It should have been a chance for all of us at a younger age to come and live here in the United States, but my tatay declined the offer because he has to go by himself first and then we follow later. He doesn't really want to leave my mom and us 5 children alone. Plus my lola from my father was very sick and he was still actually helping financially. So then my father retired and he again went and got a job because we're all still in school. There's like my 3 older siblings were all in college, and then I was about to graduate high school, and then my younger brother was freshman in high school. So by then, as we grow older, we tried to look for a job. My older brother got a job, and so was my second to the oldest brother, and then my sister. The last 3 years of my college schooling, pursuing my chemical engineering degree, I was able to get a job on base as a teacher's aide for the speech therapist teacher and English as a second language. My learning of English at a young age helped me a lot, plus also the 4 dialects that I know how to speak.
And you can tell everyone, Mom, what those 4 dialects are.
Okay, so the 4 dialects, the 4 dialects I speak Tagalog, which is the national language. Kapampangan is where I was born. It's the dialect where I was born. Pangasinan is the dialect that was spoken to us by my lola from my tatay side, and Ilocano is more on, meeting the neighbors.
Mm-hmm. And for those of you, my grandparents here, my dad's side, they speak Ilocano. And what else?
Sambal.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So when you learn how to speak English, you're fairly young then, yeah?
I was not more on like speaking yet,
Mm-hmm.
but learning how to read it.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, going to school at my elementary years, we do have subjects in English. So we learn how to read books in English also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, and then so later on you graduated, and
So later on I graduated elementary, so I now go to high school. It's called Holy Angel College then.
Mm-hmm.
So right there we have to speak English. And I remember, I recall, I think I was in my junior years in high school when we did this school English campaign, speak English campaign. And so we have to speak English among each other, my classmates. We got so used to speaking our Kapampangan dialect. So, but then, because of the campaign, we have to speak English. If you don't speak English, then you get fined 25 centavos, which is kind of like an equivalent to 25
Quarter.
cents over
Yeah.
here. Yeah. Of course, I didn't have that much 25 centavos. So I better learn how to speak English and speak English every day.
Yeah. Okay, so when was the beginning of you now coming to the US? So how'd that all start?
Okay. So I had my training at the base hospital pharmacy and at 3rd Civil Engineering Squadron. I met a lot of friends. And the friends that I met, they invited me to attend a Bible study. So I did go, and during the Bible study, I met someone. I met a man
Okay.
from the military who was attending the military, and his name is Mike. Mike and I kind of like show interest to each other. And then, he actually would like us to date, but I'm not allowed to date then because your Lolo and Lola are very strict. So he comes over to the house. So he comes over and visit, and then I have known him for almost a year, and it's time for him to leave because his tour of duty being stationed at Clark Air Force Base is over, and that he has to return to the United States. So he did return to the United States, and we continued communication through mail. And people from the United States receiving mail from the Philippines, it takes a long time. It could take up to like a month or two. So it's a slow process. And then during that time where we were communicating through mail, he proposed to me. He said that he would like to marry me, but I have to come to the United States.
Wow. And
Yes.
so what was that process like?
Well, the process is kind of like long at first. It's like I don't know what to say, and there's just so much stuff that you have to go through. I have to look for my birth certificate. I have to get my baptismal certificate. I have to like ask my parents' marriage certificate. So there's just so much stuff. And one thing, it's easy to go get the birth certificate and then the baptismal certificate, but to ask your Lolo and Lola about their marriage certificate, they're going to start wondering, why am I needing it? So I asked your Tito Nor to help me. So they were able to go get it. I don't know why, but they were able to get it. So I was able to get a copy. And then by then, there's a checklist that I have to have before I submit all the documents to acquire visa at the U.S. Embassy in Manila. So by the time I was able to get all of those, I went with your Tito Nor to submit paperwork. And that morning, it was like November of 1986. I submitted the paperwork, and I was told that I have to wait for a little bit. And so it was probably like about a couple of hours I waited, and the next thing you know, I got called in, and it's the interview process. So I was asked several questions, and then later on I was asked again to sit in the lobby and wait, and I waited for an hour. Next thing you know, here comes visa issued to me, so I could go to the United States. But then at the same time, I already have plane ticket to leave. Right before my visa was issued, my parents bought the ticket already, and I'm supposed to depart Philippines November 17.
So it's like a 3-day time span, yeah?
It's a 3-day time span. And, while your Tito Nor and I are leaving the U.S. Embassy, he was kind of like shocked, but then also at the same time, I'm kind of like stunned, feeling like, okay, what am I going to do? I haven't told your Lolo and Lola yet that I'm going to the United States, that all of these things had happened on that day. So what I did later on that night, I have to spill the beans. And so I went and got ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Magnolia ice cream, I remember. So I sat your Lolo and your Lola
Mm-hmm.
at the kitchen table, and I just said, I'm leaving to marry Mike on Monday.
Oh god.
And then when I saw your Lolo, like he was like his jaw like about to drop, and I saw
Mm-hmm.
that tears. Your Lola being a very strong woman, she just got up, brought the cup and the spoon, put it on the sink, and didn't really say anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a silent moment at that time, and that's it. I went to go upstairs and went to bed. I was really feeling guilty because it was just like I didn't really say anything to them, and the fact that the reason why I didn't say anything, I was scared. I was young. I just got done college that time. I felt like I haven't even had my turn to help out, because I'm working already before I graduated college, and your Tito Lito, your Tito Nor, and your Tito Cyril, they did their share on helping, and you know how our culture is like to help, so that's the guilty part of me. It's like I just started working not too long.
So then after all of the emotions and things like that, you had to head out to the US. And
So here comes November 17. I have to head out to the United States. The whole neighborhood came to take me to the airport. So I didn't look back anymore because I just don't want to see everyone crying. I have to learn to be tough because here you go at a young age. I'm going to United States not knowing anyone. But the good thing about it is like when I left home, I stayed with your Tito Cyril and your Tito Jim for quite a bit. So by the time I got in Hawaii, my first state to enter, I was okay, because I didn't feel homesickness because my sister's over there. I'm able to eat the food, then
you mean like eat Filipino food?
Filipino food, yes. And then later on that time, it's time for me to go to California to meet my future in-laws. So here you go. I travel again to another state, landed in California, in Los Angeles, and I have to meet my future in-laws that I haven't met. All I saw is their pictures, but I didn't recognize Mike's dad. He was holding my name, and it's written Vina because that's my nickname, Vina, my nickname back home. But it's upside down, so I had to kind of like put my head, tilted my head, and just say, oh, it's my name. So then I approached them and I said, I'm Vina, and then I see Mike's mom come over, and then they gave me a hug. Mike then was still in Idaho because that's where he's stationed. So now comes the wedding. So we got married, and then a few days after that, we have to go to Idaho. So we're now traveling to Idaho, and we encountered snow. So I was so excited because I haven't really seen snow, and I told Mike to pull over because I want to feel the snow, and it just felt like the shaved ice that you put in halo halo. Yeah. So we get to Idaho later in the evening. It was snowing, and then I have to unpack a lot of the gifts that we got from our wedding. Mike has to go back to work the next day, so I was left alone by myself. So it kept me busy because there's so much stuff to do. Now, we have a place to live in inside the base, the military base. We live in a military base. But then, during the day, because I'm by myself, I open the window, I don't see people. Then I start feeling homesick again. And then I wanted to eat rice. We don't have rice. I don't know where to buy rice. So there you go. But then all I saw then was like, okay, the gift that we have, there's flour, and then there's like a recipe book. So I opened the recipe book, and then there you go. I'm learning how to make pizza. So being married, then that was the first meal I made for lunch for Mike in Idaho. Then here comes April, and I went outside and I started walking, and I met this Filipino. So we exchanged home phone number, and then one day she called me and she invited me to go to their house. They have like a potluck gathering there, and so I went, and I met a lot of Filipinos. So I start feeling good because here you go, I'm able to eat food, and then I'm meeting Filipinos. So that was fun. Not until I went with Mike to attend a gathering that I felt some sort of like discrimination. I don't know, should I say discrimination or not, because we went to a gathering and I was introduced as his wife, and I was talking to people, and then there's this man that came and approached me and asked where did I learn my English, or do I have some sort of education? Then I replied to him and I just said yes. I learned my English back home. I did speak English as a young age, and I do have education. I have a degree in chemical engineering that I acquired from the Philippines. But then later on, he just walked away. So when I came home, I kept thinking about it, and then I just said to myself, well, maybe he doesn't really know that there are Filipinos that are educated, that our country, the Philippines, speaks English. So I just learned to let it be. Later on, I decided I would like to go back to work, so I went to the human resources, and they don't have any job opening at that time. But I met this lady from England. She's married to a military, and we kind of like talk about my work experience, and I mentioned that I was a teacher's aide for English as a second language and a speech therapist. And so she asked if I don't mind volunteering to teach conversational English to Asian immigrants. So I was kind of like excited because I know volunteer work would count as an experience. So I said, yes, I will do that. And then I did. So I did it twice a week. And then at the same time, I was able to help prepare them for U.S. citizenship testing. So a few months later on, there was a job opening, and it was a preschool teacher at Mountain Home Air Force Base, Idaho. So I applied for the job, and I got it. So I began working, and then I found out that I am going to be blessed to have a child, which is your sister Brianna.
Wow.
So I actually I actually continued working until right before Brianna was born. So I stopped working January of '88, and then your sister was born
Popped out.
March 1988. Yes.
Oh.
So 3 months later on, we found out we have orders to go to Izmir, Turkey.
Oh wow. Okay.
So here you go, another journey for me, because it's not that long ago that I came from the Philippines, went to United States, and here I am going to Turkey, which is another country. So it's a quite shocking experience for me as a young mom traveling with a young baby. So when we arrived to Turkey, the airport was being renovated that time, and I have to go to the bathroom. There's not a lot of English speaking Turkish nationals there, so I have to talk to one man, and he didn't understand me, so I have to demonstrate how you wanted to go pee, and he just pointed to the direction to where, when I was looking at his fingers, he was pointing, and so I followed, and there you go, I saw a bathroom, but it's not gender identified, so I just walk in because I really have to go. right then I have your sister wrap around my chest. So I go in to the bathroom, and the commode is leveled to the floor, and the door is not fully covered. So I have to squat. When I squat, I heard footsteps and voices of men coming. I got so scared because now I'm on a male bathroom. I was praying that your sister won't cry, because otherwise they're gonna hear her crying. They're gonna start wondering, knocking at the door, and there you go. They see me squatting on the floor. So that's kind of like a fun experience. And then after that, the people that are supposed to pick us up to go to the hotel to where we're going to stay, it's the transient lodging facility for the military. They weren't there, so it was kind of like a long wait. So finally a van came, and there's 9 of us that rode the van coming from
the US.
The US. And so now we arrived the hotel, and then we got our room and everything. So we stayed there for a month until we got our housing. It's Izmir, where we were stationed, is not a Air Force base. It's called Izmir Air Station. So we were actually mixed with the Turkish nationals. So it was another experience for me, because my neighbors are all Turkish nationals, And then one experience is like a guy comes over knocking at my door and asking me like if I wanted, well, he said, do I wanted su, but it's in Turkish language. Su means water, like bottle of water. And I keep on shaking my head because I don't really understand him. And then he introduced himself. He said, Kapiji. Kapiji is the building, kind of like a building janitor, So I said, okay. But then, so every time I call him, it's Kapiji, but that's not his name. I found that out that it's not. I thought his name is Kapiji, but it's not his name. That's just
how you say janitor.
Janitor, building maintenance worker in Turkish. So here you go. I don't understand what they say to me, so I went and bought a dictionary. So I taught myself to speak Turkish. And so every time someone comes over, I have to tell them just a moment. When I say just a moment, it's you can say bir dakika. Bir dakika is just a moment, and then I start flipping the pages, finding the English language that I want, the English word that I wanted to say, and then gets translated to Turkish. So now they start understanding me. And then as years went by, I was able to speak Turkish, because I ended up getting a job also at that transient lodging facility where I stayed. I became the billeting supervisor there, and then I worked with a lot of Turkish nationals. There's just 2 Americans, and 2 Americans that were hired. It was me and then my boss. They barely speak English, but I learned a lot of Turkish words, and then so the not so good experience was our time there. The war started, so I experienced the real bombing. When I know when a bomb was placed under an American car on the alley between the American embassy and the hotel where I was working. I wasn't there. I was still at home, but I heard the explosion because we don't live that far. And then Brianna's dad came home just to find out where I was. And that's the bad experience that I experienced there, because it was really scary. We can't go out, we can't go out. You can just see all U.S. military patrolling the neighborhood, just to tell us not to go outside because it was dangerous. And then, so after that happened, we now get orders to go back to the United States, and we're going to get stationed in North Dakota. So Mike went before me, and then I followed. So I flew with your sister from Turkey to Germany to New York, and then to Grand Forks.
Wow.
Yes. So when I got to Grand Forks, there's no military housing, so I experienced living in a trailer. I didn't know what a trailer was. Like I said, okay, our house has, because we don't have trailer in the Philippines. Yeah. Then when I looked, I said, oh, why is it our house has wheels?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know their trailer. So we were there for just, like maybe like 2 months, and then we got into base military housing. And then I wasn't working then, and then I was watching this TV. I was watching TV, and I saw something flash about they're looking for someone that they need volunteers to organize Asian Pacific American Heritage. So at that time, because I wasn't working yet, I called and I wanted to volunteer. But then I ended up getting a job at Sears. But I wasn't driving, like it's outside the base that you have to drive at least like about half hour. And I ended up riding with a friend that I met because she got a job there too. So we rode together. She was my neighbor at the trailer place first at that time, and then they ended up moving on base too. So she picks me up, and we both go to work. Eventually I quit that job because it was hard because of the weather. It's snowing. And then in 92, that's when I got my driver's license. Then eventually I got a job.
Do you remember your driver's license score?
No, I scored 93, I think.
That was better than me.
Yeah, I scored 93. And then and then eventually I got a job on base. I took this speed test. It was a
speed test.
It's a speed test, 120 questions in 15 minutes. It's so when you pass the test, you become civil service, like a GS position. You get a GS position. It's general schedules, what they call it on base. So I took that test and I scored pretty high, so I got a job. So now I start my civil service career that's where I started my civil service career in North Dakota. So the month of May came around, and I became the project coordinator for the Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. So we were able to wear our national costumes and also perform our traditional dances.
You did some of the dances, correct?
I did.
Yeah, and what was the name of them?
So I danced the Pandango sa Ilaw, to where you will, you balance a boated candle, one on your head and one on each hand, on your palm, and you do the swaying. And so that's one part. I also danced the hula, then, and also the cariñosa, which is a courtship dance in the Philippines. Yeah.
And so you said it was a successful event.
The event was successful, but unfortunately things happened. My marriage ended with your sister's dad. For a while, I was living as a single mom, raising Bree, because we were separated already. The divorce was in process. Then, during the Asian Pacific Heritage, I met your dad because he was our MC, and also he was one of the dancer. He danced too with us, and we became friends. And then it was time for him to leave to go to Turkey. So your dad then left in Turkey. Lynn went back to Washington State because Lynn was living with your dad when I met them. And then Lynn went back here with your grandma. After your dad's 6-month tour from Turkey, he came back to North Dakota, and then we began dating. We ended up dating, and then I decided to move with him in Colorado because that's where he's going to get stationed. So fast forward to Colorado, I married your dad. We bought our house. 2 years later on, you were born. 2 days after a nasty blizzard in Colorado.
The wonder child was born. Wow, what an exciting time.
A day before Halloween.
Scorpio season. Just kidding. Okay.
So when you were almost 2 years old, your dad and I, we decided to move to Washington State near family. So eventually we moved to Washington State and live with your grandma. And so 21 years later, here I am. I still work for the county government. I now have 2 grandchildren from my oldest one. I will be a future mother-in-law. I will have a son-in-law from my middle. And my 23-year-old youngest, who's my best roommate, who keeps me in line eating healthy foods and exercising.
Yes, you're welcome, Mom, for keeping you healthy. What can I say? I would like for you to live long. Anyways, in all seriousness, did you ever really think that you would be where you're at today?
Yes, I wish I could do more, but I'm happy where I'm at. I have always dreamed of living here in the United States because I know with my work experience back home and with my schooling, I'm able to land in a better, good paying job, which it's okay at the moment. It's good.
Yeah. And so real quick, like as we start to wrap up the episode, what is one of the things that you have learned most from your entire experience? And what is some advice that you would give to people when it comes to learning about other people's cultures?
Okay. At a young age, traveling from the Philippines to the United States to another country and then back here in the United States again, I became so strong and very independent. You have to, you have to face the challenges that you encounter daily. Family is not just blood. You meet a lot of people. And there are so many reasons why you meet all of these people in your life. They become your friends, they become your family. My advice out there is to learn to be more compassionate, to be more understanding, open your heart, open your mind, learn and embrace other cultures, ask questions, and get to know other nationalities in a deeper level. And I have always said this to you and to your sisters that appreciating the similarities and respecting the differences are very important because we get to learn more about each other and live in a much kinder world.
Wow, that's like a Miss Universe answer right there. Good job, Mom.
I tried.
But here you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Really what she's just trying to say is just to be kind to one another. You don't necessarily know kind of a person's upbringing, where they're from, and how it shaped the person that they are. And so really trying to understand one another is what allows us to have a much more deeper connection for one another. As always, I just try to reiterate this just to embrace one's individuality while also exercising empathy. However, my intention for this episode was to share with you guys my mom's adventure as far as her being from the Philippines and immigrating here to the United States. Once again, there are so many people out there who are constantly going through certain challenges in life, and one thing we have to recognize, especially with everything that is happening, there's a lot of adjustments that are going to have to be made by individuals when it comes to trying to find an opportunity that is supposedly much better here in the US. And sadly, it is a little bit more difficult, not only for Asian Americans, but just for people of color in general. But with that being said, Mom, I really do appreciate you being so open and so honest and really sharing your entire experience as far as coming here to the US. As you guys can tell, maybe through her story, I think she's instilled a lot of strength, a lot of independence, and a lot of courage within me. I can't really speak on behalf of my sisters, but I do know that she definitely has played a part as far as the person that I am today. And I was really excited to just share that part of me with you guys. However, this concludes yet another episode of Are You Alone? My special 6-month anniversary. It's important to celebrate the small goals in life. But I appreciate you guys so much for just your constant support and love and for listening. Make sure to go stream all of the latest episodes of Are You Alone on whatever streaming service that you use. If you're still watching, please go give this episode a big thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe and to also turn those post notifications on. If you guys have any questions about my mom's story or maybe any comments, you can leave them down below or you can just hit me up on my social medias. You can also keep up with Are You Alone on Instagram at AYA_podcast and on Facebook at the Are You Alone follow page. Other than that, my name is Bianca, and as we continue this journey, all I ask is that you guys do your best to achieve life on natural euphoria. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Maraming salamat po sa inyong suporta. Bye!